Well, welcome everybody to our soccer rules clinic. Make sure everybody can hear me. So if some of you can give me a thumbs up, that would be great that you're able to hear me. Awesome. Well, it's February 22nd, and for a lot of the other sports, that is the one day that we've been waiting for to get started. Some of you that have been in hybrid since February 8th, we're ready to open up pods today, and others will be waiting, but we're excited that we are here. And we just need to make sure that we do everything correctly when it comes to the governor's public health orders, the public education's return to school guidance, and the NMAA guidelines and NFHS when it comes to the sport. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. I will do the first part of this. A lot of it is COVID-19 and some different things within the season. Please ask questions. I think either Nate or Dana will be looking at the chat. And we ask that you keep the questions to actually what the slide is, because pretty soon I'll probably get to the answer of your question. So we'll just go ahead and get started, and here we go. So important dates for soccer. March 1st is the first day of the soccer season. And as far as practice is concerned, we need to make sure that you are in hybrid for 14 days before you can open up your pods. So for example, if you started hybrid today on the 22nd, you would need to wait until March 8th before you are able to play in a game or open up the pod practices. You have to stay in pods 4-1 for 14 days, and that even includes no contact. So that may determine when you want to play your first game. You are able to play your first game on March 6th if you have been in hybrid already for 14 days and you're ready to go. Other than that, you need to talk to your athletic director about your schedule when you would be ready to begin competitions. And when I say that, because if March 8th is the day that you finish your 14-day of pod workouts, and then you can open up, you as a coach need to decide when is that time where you will be game ready. And I will tell you, this year we may not be game ready for the whole entire season, but our kids will be having the day of their life to start and have fun with that. I see in the chat about President's Day. If you started on the Tuesday after President's Day, then you're going to be 2 weeks from that Tuesday. However, if there was a snow day on that Tuesday and you didn't start hybrid to Wednesday or Thursday, we will kick you back to starting on that Tuesday. So the snow day will still be okay as part of one of your 14 days right there, because a lot of people were out of school on that Tuesday and Wednesday after President's Day. Rosters and schedules must be in on Max Preps by March 12th. And we're going to talk a little bit about rosters, and I'm going to get into COVID when it considers about rosters. On that, I said rosters and schedules. I did not say anything about pictures. It is not going to be mandated this year that you have a picture on Max Preps. We're hoping you do, but I know there's a lot of restrictions when it comes to the picture taking. So it's up to you whether you're going to be able to get a picture taken. So with the rosters, guys, with COVID this year, a lot of you tend to float some kids from the varsity to the JV. You need to make sure that if this is the year to minimize your roster a little bit and not float as many kids or any kids this year, because if one of those floaters has COVID, you have infected not only your varsity when they just sit on the bench or they sit there with you on the sideline, they don't play much, but you've also infected the JV. So you really need to make sure you cohort your teams this year. It is up to you. I'm not telling you what to do. It's just some words of wisdom when it comes to this COVID, and it's not going to be normal this year practicing everybody together is something also too I would separate. Because if one person, if your varsity, a kid on your varsity has COVID and you practice together, you might have to shut down both teams. So separating them as much as possible is the best thing this year. Now, we have talked a lot with our other team coaches and our athletic directors, and we even talked to you guys. The last week of the season, we're hoping to have some type of culminating event. Right now, the governor's office have not approved that event just yet. Reason is because right now we are having to play games in our region. And when you get into a tournament start situation, even though we're not spending the night and going to one facility, we are now crossing regions to play from one team to the other. So they have not approved that yet. We are hoping that they do. And if they do approve those, the quarterfinals on Monday, Tuesday will be at home sites. Wednesday, Thursday, the semifinals will be at home sites. And if we have to do the finals at home sites, we will, but we are hoping to be able to bring them to a centralized location for the finals on Friday or Saturday. And that facility right now is at the University of New Mexico, where we would be playing those finals. So that is what we're looking at right now with the calendar. Is there any questions at all with the calendar? All right, going on to the next slide there.
I have a question. Okay, if we get to April 3rd proceeding, a team gets a COVID case on their varsity, that team's done, right?
The team would be done unless you want to go forward with the JV, but yes, the team would be done.
So even if it's number one seed?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's why this, that's why it's really difficult. Do we have an end of the season? Because if a team is shut down due to COVID from the Department of Health, they could be shut down for 14 days, 2 weeks. So we will not stop the tournament. We will continue going, but yeah, it could happen. Any other questions?
Sally, there's a couple of questions in the chat box.
Okay, Dana.
So the first one, will soccer games be granted an exception to 10-person congregate limit by the governor? I'm sorry.
Once you are past the 14-day pod, then you can open up your practices as normal. I think that was a question. I'm hoping that was a question, what that meant.
Steve Clark, does that cover what you were asking?
Yeah, I guess it covers it. I mean, I guess I'm assuming then so the governor's office has already agreed that we're going to be able to get whatever it takes, 35 people together for a soccer match, even if the county is still yellow and can only allow meetings of 10 people.
Okay, so one thing that you have to remember, and this is where people get confused. Right now, I said pods of 4 to 1. We are still in pods of 4 to 1, even though some counties are yellow and green. We are still in 4 to 1 pods. School reentry has nothing to do with the color of the county. So we, as education-based athletics, are under school guidelines. So the school guidelines are allowing us to open up and practice and play against teams in our region due to us being hooked to the public education department and school. So we're totally different than the club and how they have to do it. So we have nothing to do with the color of the counties.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and then if a school has a 14-day shutdown due to 4 cases, will that affect all sports?
That will affect all sports. So what they're talking about there is we're under the Public Education Department and their guidelines with the Governor's Office Public Health Orders. 4 school guidelines. If a school has 4 COVID cases in a 14-day period, they must shut down that school and sanitize for 14 days. So our sports is linked to the classroom. So it is very, very important that your community, that your kids, everybody understands the safe practice guidelines. Now, I will tell you right now that there has not been one, or there might have been one school that has had to shut down for that guideline so far. So in fact, since we've been to hybrid, nobody has had those 4 cases in 14 days. So it sounds undaunting, but now, and what I want you to understand with this, it is 4 separate cases, okay? So if somebody on the team gets COVID, let's say somebody on the football team gets COVID, and then they affect 2 or 3 other players, that right there is one case. It's not 4 COVID cases. It is one contact tracing case. So when you say 4 cases, it's 4 isolated incidences. It's not 4 COVID cases. You could have 4 COVID cases in one incident. So just so you understand, it is separate cases when we're talking about the 4 contact tracing. And like I said, at this point, nobody has had to shut down. We thought one school had to shut down. They thought they were going to have to, and they did not have to because the kids on one team counted as one case, not 4 separate cases. Okay.
Okay, and it looks like there's 2 more right now. If a player has a relative who lives in their house who tests positive, that player must quarantine for 14 days, correct?
And I would say, you know, all the COVID questions are going to come to your athletic director, who goes to the nurse, who then goes to the Department of Health. Okay, we're not going to be the ones that tell you you have to do this. That's going to come from the Department of Health. And then when they tell you what you have to do, that's when we'll get the information. But I would say all of those questions, remember those same questions that we have been using to answer. And one of those questions, have you been in contact with anybody that has COVID? And if there is a yes, then they should not be at practice. Yeah, they will be separated from you from practice, because if they come to practice and then they do contact tracing and that kid gets COVID, then your team is shut down. So you need to make sure you tell your kids they need to be honest. If they've been exposed, do not come to your practice. And that is why with soccer, and this is a concern, if you are a coach that's going to allow those kids to play club and high school, you have kids going across the state lines into tournaments that have 200, 300, 400 teams. And if they bring something from out of state or from that tournament into your team, it could affect your team. But that's a decision that you have to make, and you make alone. Okay? There was a hand up somewhere, Dana. I don't know where it went.
Put it up and then you put it back down.
Okay.
And then will a team that's removed from state due to COVID quarantine be replaced, or would their opponent be granted a bye week?
It just depends on where we are, because we're only doing it for 1 week. So if it's before the tournament, they probably will be replaced. If it's in the middle of the tournament, we would not replace it. We would continue on.
If an opponent has a positive case, what is the window for quarantining if a game was played recently?
You know what? That would have to be a DOH question.
Okay. And then there's some comments in the chat about that as well. So it just says DOH made one of our players quarantined for 24 days due to a relative in the house being positive. And then we just had a kid quarantined for 24 days due to her mom having COVID.
Yeah, it just all depends. It depends on the situation, but the DOH will be telling a kid, an individual kid, a team, hopefully it's just, if it's anything, it's an individual kid. But let me tell you something. I know it's scary and it sounds just like, are we going to make it? I would tell you nationwide that most state associations have played at least 90% of their games. So there's some that have had to shut down, but there's others that didn't. So it just makes sure that you tell your kids, if they want to participate in your program, they need to get on board and do what they're supposed to do, not only on the field with you, in the classroom with the school, but at home in the community. Because hanging out in large groups with no masks and doing things that they shouldn't be doing, it's going to eventually hurt your program. So you need to figure out how you're going to make that work within your team.
And then the last question in the chat, and you may be getting to this, no spectators?
We're getting to that.
I thought you might be. Thank you.
So there was a question about officials, and just so you're aware, coaches, we feel very comfortable with where we're at right now with officials. And we will make sure that games are at different days. And Dana, if you want to answer that question when it comes to officials about games being canceled because of officials.
Most certainly. So with regard to officials, we will work with our assigners to ensure that games are covered. If there's games that, as the assigners are working on getting officials scheduled, if they notice that there's a date where they're just too overloaded and don't have the number of officials to be able to cover, they will contact our office and we'll work with the schools to see if we can get those games switched. We're probably right around the same number of officials from last year, minus maybe 10 to 15 that we know of for sure. There have been a number of officials who are holding off just because of the uncertainty of the situation, but we'll continue to work to make sure that games are covered. And the fact that there's no tournaments this year will help that. That was really a kind of an issue in the past, was the number of tournaments on weekends and regular season non-tournament games that couldn't get covered because of those. So we're doing well, and we'll, like I said, we'll work with our assigners to get those situations addressed ahead of time rather than the day of the game.
And also just in that manner, we have less teams this year, especially in the A through AAA. We have a lot of teams that have opted out. So we will not have as many games that we do have to cover this year also. All righty, let's go to the next slide. Okay, masks are mandatory. So they must be used at all time by athletes, coaches, officials, essential personnel that's there, 100% mask wearing. There's no exceptions, and by the governor's medical team and in conjunction with the NMAA Sports Medicine Advisory Team, which is made up of doctors and trainers, there is no exemptions with a doctor's note. They really felt like if a kid had to get a doctor's note and they couldn't wear masks, that it was not in the best interest of that kid health-wise to put them in a situation in a COVID environment and have them participate. So at this time, everybody will be mask wearing with that. Something just came up in the chat and I did not get that. What was that?
What are officials expected to do if mask protocol isn't being observed? Will the match be abandoned?
At this point, it is the coach's responsibility to make sure that their kids are masked up. Also, the athletic directors will be present. There's got to be administrator present, so that will be them as well. If we have issues, then we will make sure that we take care of it. I do not want the officials, that's not their job. Coaches, that is your job to make sure that the kids have their masks on. Officials will be either using electronic whistles or they will be able to use a whistle that's underneath their mask. And a lot of people are doing that. Officials, even now in basketball, are able to put that a whistle underneath their mask, and they are calling games with it.
And then Sally, there's a question. So our asthmatic players are out of luck?
Well, if they cannot participate without a mask, then they will not be able to participate.
And what type of masks do they have to wear?
They must be cloth masks, no gaiters, and they just must be your normal cloth mask. They cannot have the filter in it or mesh. They cannot have holes in it. I'll put it that way. They cannot have the filter or holes in it. I do know there's some mesh that have like 3 layers, so those aren't really holes. So N95 masks are fine.
What about surgical masks?
I would imagine that they're okay. All righty, next slide. Yes, there is going to be no spectators. That is the governor's order for us to participate with no spectators. They are going to continue to evaluate this. So guys, we need to do this correctly. I sent an email to the athletic directors today in regards to trying to do the gray on this and you know, not to follow protocols. I do know that a lot of you are outside and so you're going to have some people outside the boundaries. Do the best you can by just telling parents there's no spectators. But to have 3 cameras on a soccer game because you're going to have a parent at every camera because you want the parents to be able to see the kids, and I'm going to get a parent to be the ball shaggers when I normally don't, but I'm going to this year. That type of stuff, guys, we can't have, because if somebody shows up at the game and we have parents there as quote unquote essential workers, then we may be shut down. And I'm really fearful that if we don't follow these guidelines, what's going to happen? And my saying now is, I've always said we're going to play sports again, New Mexico. So we're given this opportunity now. Now it's how are we going to finish? And so we need to do everything correctly in order that we are not shut down and we're able to finish. All right. So pregame conference, that is going to be limited attendings, the head referee or center and the head coach of each team and 1 captain. Moving to the center, everything, guys, is 6 feet apart from each other unless you're in the game playing. On the sideline, you must be 6 feet apart. We're not going to do any handshakes before or after the game. Next slide. And we will not be doing the pregame the pre-match ceremony that the World Cup introduction that we normally do. The coaches will just send the players right to the field and to get ready to go. Substituting, make sure you maintain 6 feet apart. Just make sure you're just smart to separate everybody at all times. They don't need to be sitting close. Everybody's separated on that sideline on the bench area. Long sleeves are permissible, long pants are permissible, long sleeve shirts, all of that, electronic whistles. So you've got the drill, you understand what you can and cannot do. We've been in these COVID safe practices in New Mexico for a long time, so just make sure you adhere to them at all times during play.
And Sally, there's a number of questions in the chat. First of all, what about 1 parent filming?
You need to talk to your athletic director. Like I said, you guys, I'm not going to micromanage this. What I'm just going to tell you is we have to be smart, and you cannot have parents all over the field and on the sideline because you have decided they're going to be essential personnel. And so I don't have a problem if you've normally always had a parent film, then that's up to you. But like I said, I'm not going to micromanage, but we can't be in the gray in this item at all.
What would the penalty be to a coach if masks are not properly worn?
We can make a decision whether they want to participate or not. Either you wear them and participate, or you don't wear them and we're not going to participate. So we could probably finish off that game, but then we will make a decision if we need to just stop the season or continue on. Because guys, if you don't wear masks, then you're putting the other team who's doing it correctly and wants to participate in jeopardy. So all I can say is, guys, you just understand it has taken 11 months for us to play sports in New Mexico. This is not the time to say, I'm not going to wear masks. I don't want to wear masks. I can't believe how dumb this is. I know, I get it. I get it. It's not fun. It's not what we thought, but we're able to play. So we're given the opportunity, and when you're given an opportunity, we want to do it correctly.
So Sally, that question was from an official, and if you're an official, just report it to Sally or Chris in the office, and they will take care of it. If you observe that is going on, just finish the game and write that up, send it to Dana, Sally, and Chris, and they'll handle the rest of it. And
just make sure officials, if there is the course of play and a mask slides down during the course of play, there's nothing that the player can do about that if they're running it, slides down. So you're going to need to use a little bit of common sense. If they're deliberately taking their mask down to not play, that's the issue that we need to know. So, most kids, if they're running and it slides down, as soon as they're done running, they're going to slide it back up if they're in the middle of a play. Don't penalize that kind of stuff because it wasn't their fault. But if you see kids, taking the mask off to run, that's a different issue entirely. Sally, are teams going to be on different sidelines since there is social distancing?
Yes, they'll be separated.
Let's see.
Chris, we need to add that to all the information.
And then do we have to have ball retrievers, and do they count toward the maximum number of people within their maximum count?
We need to have a normal game if that's what we had, the ball retrievers, or I would rather think it would be somebody on the sideline. But again, it's up to, you need to talk to your athletic director with this as to what they want to do when it comes to essential personnel.
And then Bonnie Britton, you asked about color restrictions on permissible garments. Are you talking about masks or something else?
I'm talking about the long sleeves, the long pants and undergarments. Like, do they all have to match? Do they have to match the uniform?
And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't see anything in the NFHS that said that they had to match. But
I know previously we've always been expected to match. Yeah. So I'm just trying to make sure.
Yeah, there's nothing in here right now that says that, but it's just been a common sense that they should match the dominant color. In club, they do that, matching the dominant color of the shirt.
Given the fact that we're going to be playing in a colder time period than normal, I would like to propose that they don't necessarily have to match, because if I'm playing at 7 o'clock, my girls may be wearing long pants that they've never worn before, because we're not usually playing in 27-degree weather.
I was just going to say I'm in agreement. I'm not going to worry about the matching for that. Let's make sure the uniform is and masks. We get that question all the time. The masks do not have to match. Just make sure, a lot of kids, there's different masks that they're comfortable with. Just make sure they're wearing them.
Thank you.
Sally, will there be restrictions on goal celebrations?
We have restricted those celebrations. They should not be gathering and screaming and yelling and jumping on each other. We've told volleyball, who does it all the time, that they cannot do it when they have an ace or anything else like that. So 6 feet social distancing at all times, unless you are participating in a normal soccer match environment.
This was probably previously addressed, but just for the purposes of the recording, is there only one coach allowed on the sideline per game, or everyone on the coaching staff?
Once again, we don't have the restrictions of how many coaches, but you need to be social distance on that sideline.
And the last one, as of right now in the chat box, what is the proper course of action due to an athlete becoming unconscious while wearing a mask during competition? Is it to be removed or left alone?
You know,
Address.
and that's somebody who doesn't want to wear a mask. And I don't know who asked that question. We would, just like somebody who become unconscious or injured on the soccer field, we need to attend to them appropriately. Guys, I'm just going to tell you guys, just if they don't want to participate, then don't have them participate. This is not ideal. It is not a normal year. So you just have to understand that the soccer play is not going to be as good as it has. We haven't even been out there in high school for 11 and a half months. We've been in pod workouts. So the ideas of social emotional well-being of kids, let them enjoy the game. This might be the last for those seniors to ever play with their high school teammates. And even if they have the club world, high school is always different. So just let's let this happen, and we will go from there. Just be excited we get to play. Now remember, guys, when we were having meetings back in the fall and in October, and we just wanted to play. Okay, this is where we're at. Don't forget to lose that focus. We got to keep it there.
Who is responsible to enforce social distancing on the sidelines?
That's a coach's responsibility. And if there's an administrator, you may want an administrator. Somebody asked about how many coaches. You may want an assistant coach. Anybody, guys, to social distance on the sideline. It should be a coach is enforcing that. It's not an official's enforcing that. It is the coaches.
And I appreciate the comment from who I believe is a coach. Coaches should enforce their players wearing masks and social distancing. Let's hold ourselves and our teams accountable so we can play.
All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, if you see in our website, in our website, there is, and it's really not on this page, so this picture doesn't say where it is. So if you go on our home page, at the top of our home page on the right-hand side, there's a COVID-19 link. So you want to click COVID-19 and you will see some documents. The first document there is the most up-to-date document that we have out there for everything COVID. That is the requirements from the governor's office, the requirements from the public education department, the soccer playing guidelines, just like you're going to see here shortly. All of that is within one document. How to mask wear, sanitation. Go ahead, Chris.
I just wanted to add, Sally, that, like you said, all that information is in there. That is the correct link. And just to remind everyone that this whole PowerPoint presentation, we will post it on the soccer homepage starting tomorrow. We will leave it up through the duration of the season. So if you want to go back and review any of the material tonight, the PowerPoint will be there, nmact.org, and you go to the soccer homepage and we will have that link, and you can always go back and look at any of this material.
So Chris, are you going to have the participation guidelines there too, and the PowerPoint?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, got it. All right, next slide. Okay, again, if you're missing games due to COVID-19, it is going to be considered a no contest. There will not be forfeits. If they are district games, you're going to try to make them up if you can get back in time to make them up. But you will not be penalized for missing a game due to having to be shut down for 14 days. The team that will lose a game because maybe your team got shut down and your opponent will lose a game, they can pick up extra games as well. But you will not be penalized. Next slide.
And Chris or Sally, I don't know who wants to field this one. Will red cards from the 2019 state tournament roll to the first match of this season?
I still have that list, Sally. Sally, no.
Let's. We have a shortened season. Let's start anew and let these kids play. Okay. Game limitation, there's 10 varsity games, 10 sub-varsity games. So the club kid during this 5-week period has 10 game limit. So as a coach, you can make a determination whether you want them to continue to play high school. If they're going to go to a club tournament, just make sure you're adding up their games. So whatever they play in that club tournament, you need to subtract from the 10. We are not increasing that 10. That is what it is. We have a very short season. So hopefully that the club kids will, since they have been going out of state already and playing, that they will give you that 4 or 5 weeks that you're asking for. There is no longer a 14-day quarantine as of today. We will continue to follow the governor's public health orders. So if all of a sudden they come back with a 14-day quarantine, then we would have to adhere to those orders. But as long as these COVID cases continue to lower every single day, hopefully there's not a 14-day quarantine. Now, the governor's orders say you do not have to have a 14-day quarantine. However, they recommend it, or they recommend a COVID test. Your athletic director and your school can do whatever you want in this regards. We have said that you do not have to quarantine. If you want stricter rules, that is up to you. I do know there are some school districts that are having the kids choose between the two because they are fearful of the exposure that they may get out of state and at these club tournaments and bringing it back into their school. So I do know some schools are doing that, but once again, it is up to you what you want to do in that regard. Any questions?
Relative to the game limitation, the 10 games doesn't include the state tournament?
It does not. So it's the first 4 or 5 weeks there. Any others?
One captain to meet for coin flip. Can we have multiple captains on the field during play?
Mark, what's that one? Mark, go ahead on that one.
Yes, there's no limit to the amount of captains you can have on a field. There's no limit.
All righty, but just send one to that center, and
Yeah,
that's
just
it.
one. There should only be one captain from each team, one coach from each team, and then the center referee.
All righty, thanks, Mark. Next slide. We talked about this a little bit, what we were going to do, as we have had a lot of teams from the A through AAA classification opt out, 4A and 5A. If we are able, let me tell you, if we are able to have a culminating event the last week, and we're hoping we can, there will be 8 teams for 4A and 5A. District champs would automatically get a berth, and then we will pick the others. In A through AAA, there will only be 4 teams on that. So you will have a semifinal and a final. And then the new rule, 2 10-minute overtimes and penalty kicks to follow if still tied. So Chris, if you want to go over that rule for the state tournament.
That was passed by the board of directors last year. And that's going to be new whenever our next championship is. We had a bylaw that says it could go up to 4 overtimes before, but no longer. It'll only be 2.
All righty, next slide.
And Sally, there's a couple of questions again. I'm sorry. So wait, is there a state tournament? Earlier it said it was regional.
No, what you misunderstood is this. Let me go back to this. So at this point, the governor's orders, and when you see that document, it will say that all games must be played in your region. We have requested to the governor's office that we be able to have a culminating event where we may be playing games outside our region, but we would have a neutral site, or we would go really if it's a far distance. They said that let the season begin and then they will make that determination. If we have a culminating event at the end, if that is approved, then we would, yes, have to play teams outside our region. That's why we're hoping that we do everything correctly, that we are able to end that way, where the governor's office will allow us to play teams outside our region. What you're going to see a lot, because of soccer, especially in the smaller classes, it's really hard to find games. There's going to be some neutral sites there where, for example, if St. Mike's plays Hatch Valley, they may be playing in Socorro or Albuquerque. So it just all depends. There will be some neutral sites, so because we cannot travel very far and we need to stay within the regions. Okay.
What constitutes
Well, we're looking at how close you are, your districts. So they have asked me, I sent up all the districts in every sport to the governor's office, and that's what that comment was. We need to stay within our districts or within our regions. So, for example, because for example, Artesia and Carlsbad are not in the same district, but they can play each other because they're in the same area, in the same region. We do have some schools that are basically in two regions. So for example, somebody like Ruidoso, they might be able to play teams in the southeast, and they may be able to go to the southwest. So we've got some schools on those borders that we can, it just depends how far they are to the schools, but your athletic directors and your schedule will be mostly district games and staying within your area.
Will 4A and 5A be combined?
Not for districts, no. You will be playing a lot of 4A and 5A will be playing a lot of teams that are that way. Yes, you will be playing different classifications in your area. We just have to make sure the kids get games and they're not far from each other.
How was, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Dana.
How is the 10-game restriction decided on?
2 games per week.
If a player for Team A tests positive after a game, will the officials on the game and all of Team B be subject to quarantine?
That will be up to the Department of Health as to the proximity to the official to the kid.
If a referee gets assigned to a game, shows up, and the game is not played, are we still getting paid?
We're taking that payment. We will, if you have been assigned, the assigners are only signing 1 week at a time. If you have been assigned to the game and cannot be reassigned, and all of a sudden they had to cancel due to COVID that afternoon, you will get paid.
How are the 4 teams for state in Class A through 3A decided on?
We have redone districts. You need to talk to your athletic director. On Friday, we have now 2 districts. So district champs would automatically go, and then we will pick the remaining. We have the seeding selection. We will pick the remaining. Guys, again, we are not focused on the state championship at this time. We're focused on playing. We will hopefully be able to have that last week tournament of the last week. And like I've said in for every sport, having the district champs go, we may not have the best 4 teams. We may not have the best 8 teams go, but we will be sticking to district champs, get an automatic berth, and we will do the best we can to pick the remaining teams within that classification. Is official schedule out? At this point, I just had a meeting with the athletic directors on Friday. So you need to meet with your athletic directors, and the ones that are scheduled are the ones that have already opted in for fall sports. There are not any schedules at this time for anybody who has not opted in to play fall sports. So if you're still trying to get in your school district, for example, if APS is still trying to get in, there are not any schedules at this point for APS because we don't know if you're getting in or not getting in.
What is the absolute deadline for APS for fall sports?
Again, they have to be in hybrid, and then you will have to do a 14-day waiting period like everybody else. So if APS gets in on March 1st, next week, then They cannot open up practices. They can do pod workouts till March 15th, and then they can play games if they feel that they can get enough games in. How many they want to get in between that time and the end, that would be up to the scheduling and the athletic director.
And is there a published list of schools that have opted in?
We still have that. I have it. It has not been published yet. It will be published within the next couple of days because we're still waiting on some. For example, today I got called because Monte del Sol is trying to get in. Even though they opted out, they're trying to get in. ATC is now trying to get in. So there's a lot of schools that are still trying to get in. So it is not official just yet. And APS is trying to get in. So there's a lot. And so it has not been published, but it should be published here this week and then probably by Wednesday, and then we'll add to it if needed.
Okay, and
so I do not foresee APS getting to 10 games in that short amount of period. I just saw that question. That would be up to the school whenever they get in, how many games they want to play. I will give you an example. We have Gadsden Independent Schools in the sport of football. They're not getting into real late. And so they're opting, they can only play 2 football games. So they're not in a district, they're just going to play 2 football games. So again, it will all depend on when the school can get into hybrid, and then they have a 14-day waiting period after that before they can start participating and practicing fully. Preseason video for parents, there is a link right there. We have sent the link to the athletic directors. Your parents, you do not have to have a preseason meeting. You may want to via Zoom, but there is a link that the parents need to watch a video before their kids participate. So your athletic directors do have that. And also, as Chris said, this will be posted on the soccer web page so that you would be able to get that link also. All right, next slide. Chris, you want to go through concussion protocol? You're on mute, Chris.
Thank you, Sally. This is nothing new, just once again, the requirement that the students have to take the concussion course and fill out the paperwork and make sure your athletic director has all of that.
All righty. Okay, I think that's the end of mine. So before we turn over to Mark, quickly, if there's any lingering quick questions, because we need to get to the rules here shortly.
there's one question that just says eligibility rules. Clay, what specifically are you asking? If you can unmute.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I was just asking, I had a question that was posed to me. Are we still holding to the 2.0 rule as far as eligibility and 1F or no Fs? Like, we just wanted to catch up on that real quick. I'm sorry.
So if your kids had a 2.0 and no Fs at semester, or if they had 1 F and their cumulative GPA is a 2.0, then they are eligible for soccer.
Okay.
And then right now though, for APS, if they were not eligible with that, they could become eligible at the 6-week marking period.
Okay, which is this week. So thank you very much. That was my question. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Are
Hey,
there?
Sally, quick question.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Sean.
What are the procedures of getting a kiddo that has tested positive and served his quarantine time? He got tested. He got COVID over Christmas break, and he is well past the quarantine. Doctor has released him. He went and got another test last week. He is still positive. What do I need for him to do? I guess is new physical, or is the doctor's release sufficient?
Well, there's a form now that that's online. Get that signed by the doctor, and then I would have your athletic trainer or nurse approve that the kid can come back.
Perfect. That's all I
Okay.
needed. Thank you.
Sally, are there any restrictions to pod practices? Still individual skill drills? Is there keeper training allowed?
Individual skill drills, still same thing on your 4-to-1 pods. That is also still on our website. You can do training, you can do goalie drills, you can train, but again, stay in your pods. Make sure you have your little pods separated. We have said a coach can monitor 2 pods, but you need to make sure you do not mingle the 4 in one pod and the 5 in the other. They need to stay totally separate at this time. So nothing's changed when it comes to pod workouts. And you need to stay in your pods if you are still virtual. But once you get into hybrid, again, 14 days to stay in pods, and then you can open up. There is no contact in pod workouts.
And if APS does come in for soccer, do you know what the district alignment would look like?
We would be working with APS within the district alignment, but it would not be going back where Volcano and Cibola would not be going back with Cleveland and Rio Rancho. We had to schedule and move on. We would make another district is what we would have to do.
Is eligibility for 6 or 9 weeks?
APS or Los Lunas is usually 6. I don't know if there's others. Texaco, I think, is 6 weeks. Most everybody else are 9-week periods. So whatever your normal grading period is, that's where your eligibility is for those kids that did not make it at semester. All righty. I'm gonna turn this over. I'm looking at the time. We need to get to Mark so he could go over the soccer rules changes. And any coach guys, email me, text me. Some of you guys know my number. Everybody knows my number. It's on the website anyway. Text me, email me. If you have any COVID questions, if you have any soccer related questions, give them to Chris and Chris will send them to me if I need to answer them. And hey, we're starting. This is actually pretty exciting. So remember, some of the stuff I said is just make sure we do this correctly so we can finish properly. And thanks for all you guys do. And I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
All right. Thanks, Sally. Just a quick request from myself is if you have questions, please jot them down on a piece of paper. And then if we have time at the end, we'll try to answer them, okay? We'll try to go to these rules first. And then if you have questions, take a piece of paper, write them down. Most of you hopefully should have your rules book by now. We're going through some things from page 80, which are the comments on our rule changes in the rule book. So one of the first ones is if the ball becomes deflated during play and it's declared dead, and the game is resumed with a drop ball at the spot where it was last played before when it got deflated. If it becomes deflated within the goal area, then the ball is dropped for the provisions of Rule 9.2, which is basically it's dropped to the goalkeeper. All drop balls in the penalty area are started with a drop ball to the goalkeeper. If the ball becomes deflated during a penalty kick, we will of course retake the penalty kick no matter what the outcome of the penalty kick is. And then the provisions have changed. This information can be found for drop balls on page 14 in your rule book. If there's a drop ball to the keeper inside the goal area, inside the penalty area, the attacking team needs to be outside of the penalty area as well. All right. And remember, on a drop ball, the player can dribble the ball if they want. Okay. Next one. Uniforms. We talked about it already. Basically, the difference right now is that the visiting team is going to be wearing white jerseys and white socks, and the home team is going to be wearing dark jerseys and dark socks. Again, as referees, we don't want to be a uniform police. If you see that they're not wearing the right uniforms, just make a note in your game report, but still play the game. Another change that is not on here is that they have now allowed us to not have to police the tucked in your shorts kind of shirts on your uniforms. So players can have their shirts untucked if they want to. Yay. Next one. Mouth guards. The only change here is basically they're taking away the verbiage. Mouth guards can be a solid color, they can be solid white, they can be solid, they can be clear, they can be any color, I guess they want to be. That's found on page 26. Next. Ball in and out of play. This is on page 38 in your rule book. Ball is out of play when, first, it is completely crossed the goal line. There's nothing changed about that, whether on the ground or in the air. That hasn't changed. The ball touches an official and remains on the field. Hasn't changed. So if the ball does touch the official, we are going to be more in line with the IFAB rules now. So that means that if it hits the official and it goes directly into the goal, or it starts a promising attack for the other team, or it changes possession, then it is a drop ball to the team that had possession of the ball when it hit the official. That is the only change there. Again, in the drop ball, the game is started with drop ball when the ball is caused to go out of bounds by two opponents simultaneously. This, in my experience, rarely happens. We usually make a decision one way or the other. But if you want to do that as an official, you drop the ball 5 yards in from the touch lines or from the lines, and you drop it to the team that had possession before that simultaneous touch. And then you also do a drop ball following a temporary suspension of play for an injury or an unusual situation, or when simultaneous fouls of the same degree occur by the opponents. Usually as officials, we make the decisions of who committed the foul, and we try to stay away from these drop balls as much as possible. All right, next, another drop ball. It's basically outlining the ways to drop the ball. It's dropped from waist level. The referee drops the ball. One player from the last team possessing the ball, so there's not two players there anymore. If that was the case before, there's only one player, the player that had last possession of the ball. And then if the play is stopped and the ball was in the penalty area, or last touch by either team, the ball is dropped to the defending team's goalkeeper with all opposing players outside of the penalty area. Once the ball is dropped, of course, they can run in, the ball is in play. Remember, we're going with IFAB rules now, closer to IFAB rules, that the ball does not have to leave the goal area on goal kicks or free kicks for a defending team inside the penalty area. When the drop ball is outside the penalty area, all players must be at least, or all offensive players must be at least 4 yards away from the drop ball. Okay, next. Free kicks, it's getting more in line with the IFAB as well now. Players opposing the kicker shall be the same thing, as at least 10 yards from the ball until it is kicked. That is not changed. Unless they are standing on their own goal line between the goalposts, that has not changed either. If the free kick is awarded to the defending team in its penalty area, this is a change. Players of the opposing kicker shall be outside the penalty area at least 10 yards from the ball and shall remain there until the ball is in play. Again, I'm going to reiterate, the ball does not have to leave the penalty area to be in play. If there is a wall, the defending team has 3 or more defending players forming a wall, the attacking players cannot be part of that wall. They have to be at least 1 yard away from the wall, forwards, backwards, sideways. They have to be 1 yard away from the wall. Okay. Next. Penalty kick. This is also in line with the IFAB changes. The opposing goalkeeper shall stand with at least 1 foot on or in line with the goal line facing the kicker between the goalposts and shall not be touching the goalposts, crossbars, or nets until the ball is kicked. Also, I want to emphasize for referees, we don't want them to be hitting the goalpost before the kick is taken as well to make the goalpost shake, anything like that. We'll try to prevent that if possible. So the 1 foot on the line before the ball is kicked is what we're going to be doing now. Next. Goal kicks, players from the opposing kicker shall remain outside the penalty area until the ball is in play. We had talked about that before. They have to be outside of the box. Now, if the goalie has the ball and they're distributing it quickly and they want to distribute quickly and an attacking player happens to be in the area, I think that is great. That is fine. They made the choice to play it. That play, you don't have to wait until everybody gets out for the goalie to start playing the ball. Next. Let me just do one more note on the rule changes as well. This one wasn't on the slides, but I read it in that page 80. If the referee fails to hold their hand up, straight up for indirect free kick, the team takes the free kick and it goes directly into the goal. And the referee did not signal it, but it is an indirect free kick according to what the foul was. The kick is retaken. We are not wanting to penalize the teams for not knowing for a mistake that the referee made. So if the referee does not hold his hand up to indicate an indirect free kick, but the kick is an indirect free kick according to the rules, and the team takes the shot and it goes directly into the goal, it will be brought back and retaken. The kick will be retaken.
Mark, this is Chris, if
Yeah.
I may, on this slide here, on the reporting system, this is just for the officials, and this is what we used in 2019. That link will be sent to all the officials once again. So make sure that you designated just one official after the game to go in there and fill out the report. That way we can make sure we get accurate information on the cards, the score, and any other issues, whether it's the field or whatever it might be, even masks. If the officials are having issues with the coaches or the student athletes and their mask wearing, you could always put that in the report there on that link.
Okay, good. Next slide. There's some points of emphasis on page 79 in your rulebook. Basically talking about the field markings marked in consistent manner and players wearing uniforms according to NFHS rules. Once again, if the field is improperly marked or a team wears an illegal uniform, the referee should still allow the match to continue. Please, we don't want to be the police, and then just inform the state associations and the NMAA about the situation. And make sure you let the coaches know as well that, hey, this is not according to the rules, but we're going to still play the game. In addition, during pre-game communication with school administrators, game officials are also encouraged to communicate these corrective actions directly to the administrators, whoever that is on site. Next. So this is just an understanding the difference between fair, hard foul, hard play, and a foul. Soccer is a contact sport, and understanding the differences between fair and hard play and a foul that is either reckless or serious is important to ensuring fair play. This is something that we should be going over in the pregame huddle that we have, I guess you want to call it that, between the two captains and the two coaches and the center referee. When a player acts with disregard of the danger to or consequences for the opponent, he or she should be cautioned for reckless play. Basically, same thing as the IFAB rules. Reckless play is a caution. When a player uses disproportionate and unnecessary force against an opponent, he or she should be cautioned, disqualified for serious foul play if they're playing the ball. It is critical coaches teach players about their own safety and the safety of their opponents. The officials recognize the differences between reckless and serious. I'm not going to read it. Sorry, guys. This will also be available for you afterward as well. Next one. Remember, this is education-based soccer. That's why at the beginning, when we do meet with the coaches, we make sure that they are properly equipped. As far as talking to the players, we let them know it's an extension of the classroom. So this required meeting for both head coaches and captains should be pertinent rules, sportsmanship, and the coin toss, and properly and legally equipped players. All right, that was pretty quick and fast and sweet. Long sleeve shirts and jackets are permissible. Electronic whistles and other whistles can be used. Cloth face coverings are required. Gloves are permissible. Again, I did find after someone asked the question if they have to be the same color, it does specify in the rules that they have to be the same color or the most dominant color. But then again, do you want to police that? Do we not want to police that? Just play the game, let them play. It's part of the rules, yes, but I'm not going to be the one, if I'm the official, I'm not going to be the one saying you can't play because because of that silly little clothing
Yeah.
color.
Mark, like Sally said, I don't think we're going to enforce that, especially
No.
with the weather and those type of things. So
Sure.
I just mean for some they would have to have white, and then they would have to have their dominant color. And so it's making athletes have to buy both, or school districts have to buy both. Whereas if we could just have a neutral color, it would be.
If their dominant color on top is their school uniform, and we can tell the players apart, that's what's important, I think.
Okay.
All right. Are there any questions, Chris, that have come up about these rule changes?
any questions regarding the rules? And if you do, that's fine. But let me remind everyone once again, and we may have even had some people join late, that this whole PowerPoint presentation will be on the soccer homepage, and we'll put it up there tomorrow. Tyler will put it there. And if you have any questions about really the COVID aspect of things, you can email Sally. The administrative side of things, you can email myself, or the rules, you can email me, and I would just pass them on to Mark and get clarification. But are there any questions for Mark regarding the rules, or for Nate or Dana or myself at this time?
I have a question for you. Okay, so I know that today, as people may know from the news, APS sent out for a decoupling letter to the state. Has anybody done that in any other district? Or is that really sort of a potential possibility, do you think? Or is that simply a fishing expedition?
Steve, that would be something that is kind of out of the hands of the NMAA. So that would be a decision of the governor and or the PED. I'm not certain if any other school districts have done that, but I do know that APS did attempt to do that today, and that vote from the board will actually go to the powers that be at the state government level. So that's all the information we have on it. And Drew, you asked about, will there be temperature checks upon entry to athletic facilities? We will have an answer for our officials on that by Thursday. So Thursday night, officials, there is a Q&A that will go over some specifics for our officials in fall sports, and that will be part of what we cover. And Efrain, let me check on the test date because I can't remember.
All right, there was a question by Mario. Mario, do you want to clarify the question or give your input on that, Mario?
Hey, yeah, I'm on mute now. Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So I guess I don't have a question. I just want to see if you can just cover that part of the rule now that we have the coaches here, so they know what is the procedure and how we handle coach misconduct, the ask, fail.
Yeah. Okay. So what Mario's referring to is what referees refer to as ask, tell, remove. Basically, what referees are instructed to do is we first, have a conversation with coaches if there is misconduct going on from them towards the referees. We ask them to change, and then if that doesn't work, then we tell them. And that usually comes with a yellow card, and then we remove, which we're disqualifying, which comes with a red card. That's basically what we do. I think one important thing to remember during this time, and I'm a teacher, and so I've tried to instill it on my students as well, is let's have grace. Let's show some grace to each other during this time. We're all probably going to be on edge because as referees, we're refereeing with a mask on our face, having to carry a whistle in our mouth under that mask, biting on it, or whatever we're trying to do, or another kind of whistle. We're trying to deal with masks coming off. Our mask might fall down at times while we're running. I know I've tried running with my mask sprints, and sometimes it does fall down, and I just fix it. So I think just relating to each other in a professional manner and reminding ourselves that what we are, how we relate to each other, the kids are watching that as well. They're learning from our actions, and so we're teaching them how adults relate to each other as we relate to each other on the field between coaches and referees as coaches. We are a team. If you don't believe it, please. Referees and coaches, we are a team working out there for the sake of the kids.
That is great advice, Mark. From the NMAA standpoint, we've been telling people in some of our Q&As, make sure that we do have grace, be patient with one another. There's going to be just new circumstances all season. So Mark, that was well said, and we appreciate that. Does anybody have any other questions for Chris or Mark or anybody else? All right, well, if you think of anything, please feel free to shoot us an email. Again, Chris, for anything that's soccer administrative, COVID would be Sally, official stuff can be me or Nate. We're looking forward to getting everybody back out on the pitch. And I know it's a short season, but let's make it a great season. We're here for you at the NMAA office and are here to serve you and answer any questions that may come to you at 2 o'clock in the morning. If you're anything like me, that's why I keep a notepad by my bed. So enjoy the rest of your evening. And if you need anything, feel free to holler. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, guys.
For the presentation.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, great job, everybody. Good night. Good luck.
Sorry, I flew through that, but
No, it's
basic.
perfect.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
All right, I am gonna log off. We've got that next meeting to get to.
Appreciate you, Mark. Thank you, buddy.
All right, you're welcome. You're welcome.